And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. And today's episode of the OSR Tabletop is a salute to our veterans. Today is Veterans Day here in the United States. I'm fairly certain it might be also celebrated elsewhere as well. So I thank all of our veterans out there. I thank you for your service. And for those that always, they thank me for my service. My new response that I always try to just remember is that it was an honor and a privilege to serve, and it was really the best and sometimes the most difficult time of my life, but I wouldn't exchange it for any other experience that I had. So, what I wanted to do today was spend a little bit of time. I invited some people. I'm going to put the link up if anybody wants to jump in. Whether you're a veteran or not really doesn't matter. But ideally, veterans that are out there that are also gamers, if you want to come in and talk a little bit about some of the prompts that I put up there, then you're certainly welcome to do so. So I am going to open up the floor. I believe I can take as many as 9 or 10 people at a time, although I'll try to control it to make it not too chaotic, even though we in the Army were always used to things kind of chaotic and change 99 and just a regular shit show sometimes. So without further ado, though, let me jump to let me put up the first banner. So I will put that up there. So happy Veterans Day and thank you for your service. And let's check the comments because I see comments already rolling it in. So hey, Worst Cat, how's it going? And thank you for your support, and thank you for your thanks. It was, as I said, just briefly, it was my pleasure. Just love the fact that it was a truly important experience in my life, and certainly shaped my life. Moving forward, there are many aspects of myself that I can't separate, even though I was honorably discharged in 1999. It really does still at times feel like it was yesterday. Let me go on and say, hey, Indigo, welcome, and thank your dad for his service. Yeah, he did 20 years. I did about 8.5 years, so I, really appreciate his long service. I unfortunately couldn't continue for a number of reasons. Life was just moving on, and I had an injury, and I didn't really feel like I could do what I needed to do any longer. Having dislocated my knee, and that kind of messed me up. But unfortunately, that's the way it played out. But again, I had an incredible 8 years of service, or 8.5 years of service, and wouldn't have it any other way. Solo RPG, hey man, and Semper Fi, and happy Marine Corps birthday yesterday. So hey, and if you want to jump in, you can certainly jump in. I will put up the invite. Right now, and anybody can jump in. And there is the invite link. So if you want to jump in, Solo RPG, it's been a while since we've had a chat, and was actually getting ready to do a solo RPG, kind of a recap. I got that Geek Gamers book from Modifius, and I was going to start going through that. So yeah, if you want to jump in, that would be great. And that might actually clue in actually pretty good with the discussion I was looking to have, because solo RPGs might have been one of the outlets that people in the military actually used if they weren't playing in groups at the time. So let's see. Big Vic, hey, how's it going, Vic? Happy Veterans Day to you too. And I see that there's, and again, you could jump in as well, Vic. So like to hear what's going on with Dave Con and C. And we have a person jumping in. Where's Cat? I'm not here. Oh, I have to put my earphones on. All right, so I'm not hearing you yet unless your mic is off. Unmute mic. Nope. I don't have you muted, so you might be muted on your end. But anyway, I'll wait till I see your mic is unmuted.
How's now? How about now?
I can hear you loud and clear now. Or I would say Comcast is a 5x5. As I'm getting older, I'm forgetting so many of those. So many of the things we used to say. Who will say these things? It's like, yeah, I vaguely remember it, and it was, it's a shame because I'm starting to lose, some of those, some of those memories. Okay, so you can hear me fine? I'm not sure if you can hear me anymore.
Yeah, I can now. There's a little bit of a delay, but I think we're good.
Oh, okay. What are you on the other side of the planet? It's like, so hey, Indigo, thank you again.
No, man, Missouri, brother.
All right, Squirrel Hermit. Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. And here we go. I read a ton of those choose your own adventure books. Yeah, I have some of those too. And that was like my. I feel like my gaming experience during my military service was sorely lacking. When I hear about other people who were playing D&D or playing other role playing games or just doing other things along those lines, it's like I was in a military police unit, and so I don't know if it was just kind of either an older crowd or it's also a headquarters company as well. Um, so it was certainly a higher ranking crowd that I used to be in, and I mean the us lower enlisted, we played dice, we played PlayStation, we did other things. There was no, from what I could see, there was no role playing games going on. So, if it wasn't a video game and it wasn't just playing cards or shooting dice or whatever, we didn't do anything else. So I really do feel like that aspect of my military service was deprived because I had no role playing games when I was in the service. I mean, PlayStation at that time just took over so much, and since you couldn't lug around your computers with you when you were, deployed or even just deployed stateside as well, it was just it was just not, not open for it, at least in my experience. You're rolling today. Yeah, I know you probably have some deliveries, so and we know how that sound comes through sometimes. But anyway, so let me get to some of my banners and welcome everyone. And again, if anybody wants to jump in, so where's Cat? Let's see. Here's a banner. So, what games did you play in service or especially while deployed? So, again, I just finished saying what mine was. Mine was basically, PlayStation, mostly sports games, EA Sports, and those kinds of things. And then there was, cards and dice and that kind of stuff. What was your experience, Worst Cat?
I kind of started with the granddaddy of them all, second edition Dungeons and Dragons, and it was great. Pretty pretty simple, easy to move around, and there was actually a fair amount of people that
Hmm.
um, were familiar with role playing, tabletop role playing games, and a lot of them had heard about Dungeons and Dragons. So ultimately, that was kind of a mainstay. Talislanta kind of crept in there, Robotech, some
Right.
others, but yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, and that was the one thing. Like, I know certain games, and it's actually one of my questions coming up is like, what kind of games really attracted or still do attract veterans or people in service now. And I know one of the games that I picked up, I don't remember if it was before I deployed or if it was sometime thereafter. But America's Army was an awesome game. It was actually developed by the U.S. Army, and it was made as a recruitment tool, but it really had a lot of things that were authentic in in the training. It was like, oh crap! I mean, that is the general orders, and this is something that was directly out of the field manual, and there were various aspects of that game, and I don't know if that game is still alive. I was thinking of actually double checking to see if I can load it up. But that was a truly awesome game, and just something that was. I know it was after my basic training and advanced training, so I know it was after that because that's what I was reminiscing to when going through there, because there is that phase of basic training that you go through in that game. And then I guess there's the cliche games like, you know, Medal of Honor and Call of Duty and those kinds of games as well. But I'm thinking that there's probably more out there that that we don't think about veterans actually gravitating to. So, I mean, is there anything in your experience along those lines as well?
I'd have to say, there's especially with affordable stuff, a lot of like Nintendo Switch and
Mm.
some fairly other portable game systems. So a lot of the digital, it takes a bit more, I think, to find people that are going to be doing tabletop role playing, pencil and paper.
Hmm.
That's more of a niche market, particularly
Right,
when you have things like gaming laptops and stuff that people are going to hop
right.
onto that Call of Duty or Battlefield or things like that. So it's a pretty, I think it favors the more digital side of things, but
Hmm.
ultimately, there's definitely both, and I think in every environment I've been in, I've seen both.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely. I mean, I'll agree with that. It was definitely niche, especially in the early to late '90s. I mean, D&D was really on the decline at that time as well. I mean, we're talking about third or 3.5 at that time, and they certainly weren't like Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role playing games in the early '80s and mid '80s. It wasn't certainly at the same level at that time. And my experience was that the console video games really did take a lot of the wind out of the sails of tabletop role playing games in general. Especially once like PlayStation hit. When PlayStation 1 hit, it was like, all right, bang, I know all of my friends and everybody were just right there. And then when PCs became more affordable, and the games certainly improved by that time, and that's probably early '90s to mid '90s as well. That's when I certainly gravitated more towards PC games. So it's yeah, it was an interesting time, at least my time frame from 1990 through '99. Um, there just wasn't that much role playing in at least specifically in my unit, because I spent almost my entire time with one unit as well. So, I didn't have that much of a change. And like I said, my unit was, being a headquarters company, was very top heavy. I mean, it was like at one point it was like myself as an E4 in the G4 section, and then it went to a master sergeant. There was no in between. It was like boom, boom, and then a bunch of majors, and maybe the lowest ranking officer was a captain in the room. So it was and a lieutenant colonel was the head of the section, and it was very, very top heavy. I had two former command sergeant majors in the section as well. So yeah, very, very top heavy. So, and most of those guys were, I mean, in 1990, I had Vietnam vets in my section. My two command sergeant majors were Vietnam vets, so they were older guys as well, at the time. So yeah, role playing wasn't going to happen. Actually, no, very little game playing was happening anyway. That's why when I went to the motor pool, that's where we shot dice and played games and did that kind of stuff. So let's get back to a banner. And so now one of the games I was going to bring up was that really got me kind of in there was I was playing Twilight 2000. All right. So I was playing that in the, mid 80s or so. And I stopped playing role-playing games around 80, I want to say 87 or 88. And the Iraqi invasion happened in the summer of 90, and then I was my father is a World War II veteran, and so that was another thing. When I was looking at it, I was like, I really enjoyed Twilight 2000. And I know that it wasn't going to be, it's going to be just like playing the game, but I just had it kind of set into me, like the multiple influences that I had at the time, both from my father particularly, but then the game itself, and then just the time, that time frame. It was a very easy thing for me to to enlist in July of in July of 1990. Hey, Wolfpack 6, 20-year Marine Corps veteran. So Semper Fi as well. It was your guy's birthday yesterday. So happy birthday to the Corps yesterday. Played RPGs, but didn't play much while in the Corps because no one I knew did. Yeah, it was very similar to my experience, but did play with old friends on leave, picked up again after I retired. Yeah, so I think that's a very common experience. Is that especially if you're deployed and everything, that kind of thing kind of got put on hold. Hey, we got Donald coming in. Oh, let's go. Hey, Don, how's it going? I'll wait for your sound to click.
Testing.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear. How's it going? Is it me that's just on a delay, or it's probably just a rough internet day? Maybe that's what it is. It's probably a very rough internet day. Yeah. Probably a lot of people streaming, and a lot of people just a lot of people are home, so they're probably on the computers more today as well. So yeah, no, I saw what was your experience during while you were either deployed or just in service, Don?
Well, we played. I mean, I was in service, right at the late '80s, early '90s. So
Right.
that was, you still had your satanic panic and the stigma of you're just a little geek hiding out in your mama's basement half the time. But there was a few people who played. Back stateside, we did play a couple of games of D&D, Warhammer, and Shadowrun. When I was on ship, I happened to be reading one of those Pick a Path adventures, and somebody saw me reading it, and they asked if I played D&D, and I didn't know it. But after dinner time in the mess hall on ship, in the
Nice.
where the basically the Navy staff NCOs, I forget their rank, the chiefs and whatnot, the Chiefs
Yeah.
Lounge. We took over the Chiefs Lounge every pretty much every night that you weren't on some type of duty, and played there. And then after Desert Storm, or actually during Desert Storm, when we were parked outside of Kuwait City, I was part of artillery unit. And after the war was pretty much over, but we were still there just, to provide
Right.
comfort and all that other good stuff. We were playing in the back of a 5-ton with no books, no nothing. The rule was, okay, whatever the DM says, go, because we got no books. There's no arguing. And since none of us brought dice, we just took a pair of scissors and just cut up the boxes that the MREs came in, wrote numbers on them. And, one cup was a D4, one canteen was a D4 canteen, one was a D6. Someone had a bigger container we used for the D20, and that was what we used to play. And that was how we killed, 3 or 4 hours a night if you weren't on some type of guard duty or something.
That's awesome. That's an awesome modification to you're basically using chits, but in a different way.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean that's probably partially the evolution of playing diceless, or is just or solo gaming as well, which I know you're really big into, and I really like some aspects of it as well, especially when testing out things to see how various scenarios will work. It's great to have a decent solo system to use to test out those scenarios. But those probably came out of the need for doing that kind of thing. And I have some of those, I have a Conan one that's as you go. Actually, GURPS has a ton of solo games. I think almost all of the Conan adventures are written that way for Conan GURPS. And then I have a couple of the ones from TSR, I think there was 2 Star Frontiers ones, and then another one. I know Volturnus was one of them. I actually have them on the shelf behind me. But yeah, there were some some cool adventures as you go, or choose your own path kind of adventures. There was a ton of those books.
Yeah,
I mean, there was a lot of them. Yeah, there were probably like 50 of those books out there.
Yeah, I think it was the Ravenloft one I was reading at the time when they invited me to the game.
Yeah, so yeah, no mistaking, no mistaking a Dungeons and Dragons connection to Ravenloft. Yeah,
it was awesome. Right there, cool.
Yeah, Wolfpack. Yeah, it's I usually spend either this day or certainly Memorial Day. Usually go visit my father's my father's gravesite on this day over at Pine Lawn. I mean Long Island. That's the big cemetery, military cemetery, on Long Island. And so I usually go there for this day, but just wasn't in the cards to do a day trip today. So it's kind of nice out, so we had to get some decorations out. It was like before the weather turns, and we can't do that. But anyway, it's hey, thanks, Cal. Thanks, Cal. Good to see you as well. So we're talking about like games that, and I know there's a lot of veteran-based gaming communities out there. And usually they're pretty straightforward, like the veterans gamers, on Facebook and so on. So there are a lot of veteran gamers out there, and they have great communities. And I've always liked playing with veterans, especially in whether it be tabletop or in particular in MMOs, because they just come to the table with at least in my mind, and it's probably a bias of mine, but in my mind, they come to the table and they're a little bit more serious, about the game, and certainly like learning the game and knowing what they're doing in the game, but they're still, they're still wide open for any kind of fuckery that you want to do as well.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
it's like
yeah,
you kind of get both. It's like,
yeah, you get the
yeah.
best of both worlds sort of
Yeah,
concept, because
yeah.
we come in with a certain degree of discipline, obviously,
Right.
because that's been ingrained in us. But then we're like, wait a minute, we're off work. We don't have to do the the shoe shining and saluting. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah.
And that was literally some of the best gaming with a group I've ever had, was sitting around the group of the table with literally a ton of other Marines.
Yeah.
You know how Marines are. We have that mentality, we got to be the best, the best, the best. So we were literally pushing the envelope, and some of us were going, okay, yeah, I can see where that makes sense now. It didn't make sense 2 minutes ago, but now, okay. Plus, not to mention, one of my guys, he was a tactics guy. He was a trainer for, tactics. So when it came to combat, he was the ultimate tactician at the table, because that was his way of, he wanted to stretch his imagination. So if he had a military tactic in his mind, he was going to try to convert it to what's happening on the table.
Right.
We had another guy who was a military policeman who worked in the brig. And the one thing you did not want was your PC to get captured when he was DMing, because you knew you were never getting out of jail, just because you knew his mentality as well.
Yeah.
That was his job, guarding people. Matter of fact, if you acted stupid at the table, his favorite quote was, all right, I'm revoking your basic human rights right now. You are a prisoner.
Yeah.
So
yeah. My unit just put underpants on people's heads, which did not go well. Did not go well for them. Yeah, that was not a very popular activity at the time.
I was going to say, no, for when you have veterans at the table, it's definitely a different experience. Simply because I think a lot of it, you have people are serious about having the fun that they want to have, and that's kind of, that might seem like an oxymoron, but when you take the time and you want to sit down with people and enjoy an evening, there's a measure of deliberateness and intentionalness that comes to the table. It's just a lot more enjoyable, I think. But especially when things get spicy in combat or out of combat, even, it definitely there's a lot less guardrails, there's a lot less filtering, and I think that it's just a great time overall.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Especially after about 5 or 6 drinks, it really starts going, at that point. But it's certainly a different atmosphere, and it's a unique atmosphere, and it's one that I really, really do enjoy. And that carries over into other gaming as well, like MMOs, especially ones that have a lot of player versus player orientation. I mean, I've always learned, I spent about 12 years doing nothing but MMOs, and I wanted two types of guild leaders. I either wanted a military person or a woman. All right. Because both of them, especially women didn't fuck around in PvP based MMOs. It was like, damn. I mean, it was like they always had something to prove. And then, I had the privilege of being in a guild where not only was it run by a female, but then her husband was a military person. So you kind of got both, and it was but that's the kind of settings that I think the military background really do shine, because, and it's not their training, it's the attitude, that really does lend itself to that kind of playing.
Oh yeah, there was a female Marine who played at our table for a little while. And, men being men, we probably may have crossed the line once or twice, towards the attitude towards women, and it was getting so much that I was like, "Hey guys, we need to back off. There's a lady at the table." She goes, "I don't care, go for it."
No, they were never the ones that cared.
Yeah, they were like, she was like,
yeah.
"I don't care." I was like, "All right, fine."
I remember,
if you're not upset, I won't get upset because I'm having a good time.
Yeah, they never cared. I remember when Tailhook first happened, and shortly thereafter we started getting all of these trainings that we had to go through, right? And it was, we were very top heavy and a very male dominant unit anyway. A military police unit is going to be that way, and what few females were in the were in our unit were either very high ranking, and usually lawyers. They were the JAG officers, for the most part, and then and very few. I think we had a couple of female privates in comms and in a motor pool. The rest, I don't remember any female. There had to be some female MPs, but not at the lower rank. Like I said, they were probably I want to say they were at least E6s, if not higher ranking there, because most of them were also police officers in civilian life. Because by that time, once Desert Storm was over and we shifted back, we all shifted to the reserves and stayed in the same unit, just as a reserve component of the unit. And so when that kind of thing happened and they started worrying about the the harassment and the language that you were using, they either said, "Hey, treat me like just everybody else." They didn't want the special treatment. They didn't. But I think it was much worse when they'd walk in the room and the whole room went silent, because nobody wanted to say a damn thing while they were in the room. And at that time, I was a sergeant, so I had two privates that were kind of beneath me, because, like I said, it's so top heavy. It was like, "Oh, you're an E5, you could take care of the E1s in the unit," and it was like, I just this is what you need to do, and come back to me in 6 hours and let me know how it went. And I had no other contact with them whatsoever. It was like, and I feel for them, because they probably felt equally between awkward and left out, because of that whole cloud of attitude that they created around it. So yeah, I mean, I kind of rambled, but yeah, it was definitely an interesting time. And it definitely, I'd say it negatively impacted the camaraderie that you could have, because we never, that's the one thing that people don't understand about, or they don't quite grasp with military people. We don't see race, we don't see gender. It was never any kind of a thing. I mean, we can make fun of you about any freaking trait you had, and it was never a thing, because you were all green. That's exactly what we used to say. You're all green. It's green. Like it didn't matter. It's like, no, you're my brothers, you're my sisters, you're whatever, and I don't give a shit. And it was that was the it was a bit of culture shock when I first got in. Like, it was in advanced training. I was roomed up with 8 guys. We were all in in the thing. It was like 2 of us were white. One of our guys was from Tennessee, and the rest were all black guys. And I heard the N word more times than I've ever heard in my life leading up to that point. And I said, well, wait a second. What if he or I said that? Would you be upset? No, we're all green. It was like, we're all brothers. It doesn't matter. And that's the thing I think people don't understand about the military is that we don't got hung up on nonsense like that.
Exactly.
It's,
That's right. I went through the entire Marine Corps not knowing my name because my last name's Bailey.
Mhm.
And our first sergeant, he had a thing where when you checked into the unit, he always gave you a nickname.
Yeah.
And the two guys I checked in with, one guy, he was always in a motorcycle accident of some type, so his skin was all messed up. His nickname was Road Rash.
Yeah.
And then we had another guy who joined the Marine Corps at age 29, which was the oldest you could be when you joined, but he looked
Right.
40.
Yeah.
And of course, was the grand old man of the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So he was called Old Man. Well,
Yeah.
his first sergeant looked down. Oh, Bailey. I had a Bailey in my unit, but he just left. I need me a new Beetle. So he came up and he scruffled my uniform and they took my cover and yanked it down. And he said, yep, you're my new Beetle. So it didn't matter if you were the lowliest private
Yeah.
or the regimental colonel, you were calling me Beetle. I didn't know what rank I was. I didn't know what my first name was. Didn't know what my last name was. It was just Beetle. And it was like, if the first sergeant did call you by your rank and last name, that was like your mother calling you by your full name.
Right.
You knew you were in trouble. As long as, no matter what the look on his face was, as long as he was calling me Beetle, I was fine. But as soon as he called me Corporal Bailey, I'm like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, let me get caught up with some of these here. Let's see.
Well, actually, go back to that one you had on there because I had something.
I don't know which one I had on there. Was it a banner? Let's see.
No, it was. I think it
was a comment.
L. It was a comment from L. What it means to cater to vets.
Oh, let's see.
At 12:38 p.m.
12:38. Let's see.
That one, yes.
Oh, okay. I'm curious, what does it mean for games to cater to vets? I think it's just, vets do not need X cards. I mean, certainly not anything old school. You know what I'm saying? I don't know when when they got so darn sensitive, and when I think that was probably like the last 10 years or so. But I'm curious, what does it mean that games that cater to vets? I think just games that veterans would gravitate to is what I really think about. Cater to veterans, or games that have aspects of it where a veteran's attitude might lend themselves to. Like I was saying with MMOs, especially PvP MMOs. We never cared about losing a ship or losing having a character killed or anything, and even in D&D as well, it's like you just shrug it off. It's like, all right, character, I'll just start re-rolling now. It's like it's never been that so connected to the game that you let something in the game get you upset or whatever. It's like, all right, we're just going to roll with it and move forward. So yeah, not needing X cards. I don't know if they are producing military, service members today that need X cards.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Something's everywhere. Now, I had a drill sergeant who, Drill Sergeant Morton, he did not like cursing, and he came out with that general order from George Washington about profanity while in uniform. And he was like, this has never been rescinded or anything like that. And you were getting, you were doing the dying cockroach anytime that he heard you curse. And, and it was like, it was like, oh, God damn, he heard me, heard me. Actually, you couldn't even see God damn in front of him too, because he was a religious guy too. But I wouldn't. At one point, someone complained to the chaplain that they were being too aggressive and abusive with us, verbally abusive and everything like that. So our senior drill sergeant, who was a female, who was drunk half the time. I mean, she was out of her mind, like walking sideways drunk half the time. So we were always nervous about her to begin with because we knew she was. But anyway, they came in and it was like, oh, okay, we're going to, they started doing the pretty please. Will you pretty please do your, this and that, and just, and we were getting ready to be deployed. I'm saying, for Desert Storm, we were getting ready to be deployed. And at some point, we just asked them, please just go back to training us the right way. Go back to training us with whatever, because we're going to face shit when we get there that has nothing to do with how bad you're yelling at me. What I'm saying? It's going to be a hell of a lot worse than that. And, but yeah, that was something that, even then there was pushback from us to say, no, don't treat us with kid gloves. We're getting ready to go to war. We need all of that, mental training, to be prepared for that kind of a thing. So I think the PTSD comes afterwards. You know what I'm saying? And that is, a very serious issue. And that's not something that I want to say you're going to be well equipped at a gaming table to deal with. All right. Not unless you are specifically trained for doing that kind of a thing. I certainly wouldn't want to delve into that kind of a thing at my table, because I'm just not qualified to, to assist with that.
Well, actually, that's the part I wanted to comment on. When I was, I was still living in Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is right outside Camp Lejeune. So, most of the people, like I said, I was gaming with were Marines. I'll name two cases here. There was one guy, when people have PTSD, one of the things they have the tendency to do is to shy away from people and hide in their own little corner somewhere. Well, eventually we came across this one guy who was literally like that, but he was just enough interested that he at least hung around. And of course, everybody being military and either, dealing with or having to deal with somebody else who had PTSD, we understood what he was going through.
Right.
Well, this guy eventually learned the system, played the game, had a great time, and it helped him overcome that fear of, being around people, to the point now that even though he doesn't play as much, he cosplays and goes to all the cosplay events, and he's like the center of attention. And that was because basically the therapy session of playing with us. And then there was another guy, we always called him Angry Mike, because when you looked at him, it doesn't matter if he was happy or sad or what, he always looked angry. He always looked like you just killed this dog and he's coming after you, look on his face. But he said, yeah, he'd rather play the fantasy game and fantasize about, doing the bad things to the monsters as opposed to going out and doing it for real to a real person. Right. And that was his way of combating his form of PTSD, and it worked out great. And it worked out fine at our table. We didn't have any problems just because, most of us were Marines or, dealt with PTSD. So now I keep seeing on my Facebook therapeutic DM sessions. I'm like, oh, okay. I can see how if I wasn't in the military, I look at that and say that was, laughable. But now I understand where they're coming from.
Right.
Because I know those two cases right there that worked out great for us. And I'm sure on some other level, I know dealing with all those other Marines, maybe they had PTSD and that was their way of combating it. So one way or another, I at least know of two cases where everything turned out fine.
Yeah. It's a, it's a difficult subject to talk about, but it's an important one to talk about. And it's one that you really need to go to the right sources, and resources, utilize the right resources. And I'll actually get to some of that at the very tail end of this, when I talk about some charities that I've backed, for veterans that I think really go to that as well. Did you have something, Worst Cat, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah. On the topic of what catering to vets is, that's such an open-ended question, because you're going to get a lot of differences between service branches and specialties that kind of produce a certain mindset, or a certain just a certain way of relating, and the subcultures and communities that you find in the military. So ultimately, I would say catering to vets in an RPG or something like that is going to be more, opening things up, using less sensitivities, and being able to tackle some pretty tough subjects, whether those are in the storytelling aspect or the violence aspect, or both, hopefully, tying a complete experience together. But ultimately, I think a lot of people have seen circumstances where people are protected. There is a sort of meta inclusion of modern sensitivities into a fantasy world, or a historical medieval world that had none of them.
Right. Yeah.
So ultimately, I think a game catering to vets is going to explore some darker themes, some grittier themes, stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what L is talking about here, where they say now the armed forces have like CRT and sensitivity training, and then he goes on. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about all veterans in general. So I mean, there's obviously going to be younger veterans from this kind of, this, I don't want to say era, but this generation, I guess. Yeah. So this generation of veterans are, I think still coming to the gaming table with the fact that they're still military trained. They still have, even though it might be different than when we went through, I think that they're still going to come to the table, not as, they might be more sensitive than we were, but they're still not as sensitive as, your purple haired, person on Twitter is going to be, so,
Right.
at least I don't hope so. I don't want sensitive killers in a war, with China. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll never forget one of my Marine friends told me he was stationed in Liberia at at the U.S. Embassy in Liberia, and he used to talk about the kids would walk down the streets, and these would be young kids, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids walking down the street, and they'd have their AK-47s with them, and as they were approaching the U.S. Embassy, they would switch their gun, over from one side to the other, pointed towards the ground, away from the embassy, because they knew the Marines on the wall would take them out. And he was talking about, he was like, this is what I dealt with, on a daily basis, being up on that wall, and just being ready to take it out. And he says, when I used to see them walking up, I was like, please just switch, switch the position, make sure you switch the position, because I don't want to take you out. He says, but that's basically, but the kids knew what to do as they approached and walked in. Then they would switch back over once they were beyond that point. And that kind of training, mental training, that you really have to put yourself through, because that's something you just have to get attuned to. And that's the kind of thing that I think, even though when they're at their table and they're playing and everything like that, that's still there. And that's where the dark sense of humor comes from. I think that's when they don't let the small shit bother them. It's like, because you have that ingrained in you, and it's always there. I don't think you ever lose that. It's like, I've had plenty of people say, hey, you're really nice guy, nice and quiet, nice and everything. I was like, yeah, break into my house at night, right, and then see what happens. I said, you'll see something like you wouldn't imagine. and that's the thing that's there and always will be there, so yeah, interesting stuff. And it does come to the table, I think, in a positive outlet, because we have that seriousness, but still that openness to, to basically, like I said, fuck around and, and just let it fly, under gaming circumstances.
Exactly. I always make this joke because I had to move from Jacksonville down here to help my mother. Now I'm surrounded by civilians now. I feel a bit of culture shock myself, because up there, or when you're around the military all the time, especially those with PTSD, they see, the hat and they see the haircut, or they see that you were a veteran. They'll open up and tell you things that they wouldn't tell their own family.
Right.
So now you've got that same attitude now at the gaming table.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to do things and say things that they wouldn't do or say around their family, around the gaming table normally. And this is their way of releasing whatever tension they might have inside.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a definite comfort zone that you do have. It is our club. It never changes, right? It's our club. It's our own little thing, and you can always trust when you're going into that situation that was, you're in a different environment. I'll tell you another. So when I was a school teacher by profession. I just retired, and one of the schools that I substituted on Long Island, the assistant principal was the commander of one of the reserve units I was assigned to. So he was a colonel. I was his driver, as a matter of fact, that, on more than one occasion. And he was the assistant principal in the school. I had no idea, when I went to the school to substitute, and they were like, "Oh, you have to go into, assistant principal Casca's," that was his name, Casca's office. And I was like, Casca? I was like, wow. I walk in there and there he is. I was like, holy shit, I was like, a snap to attention. It was like, hello, sir, and it was immediate. That the whole context of that relationship, just like a dime. But it wasn't like private to, it wasn't private to colonel at that point, though. It was military serviceman to military serviceman, and it wasn't assistant principal to teacher either. It was just an instant change, where we both, immediately recognized it, because he didn't treat me like I was a private, but he also didn't treat me like I was a substitute teacher in his building either. It was just a different thing. So it was, that never changes when you're in groups, and that you're dealing with veterans. Even if you're in, an industry or a place that you wouldn't expect other veterans to be, you all learn who they are, and you have a different relationship with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Mr. Bastille, for recognizing our service.
Yes, thank you. And welcome. I don't recall having seen your name here, so welcome to the channel and the live stream. And I talk about gaming, and today obviously about veterans in gaming, and we'll see where else we go with this here. So I have to be that guy. Does catering to vets differ from catering to gays? Should games, unless niche audiences, strive to cater to all? I'm going to tackle this way. You're going to have gaming groups that cater to whatever little niche they want. All right. And like I said, there's preferences that, we might have, as far as, like I said, if I'm playing an MMO, I'm perfectly happy, and I'm probably even more happy if it's a woman running the guild. If she was a military person as well, it's even better. But I've just had such positive experiences that way. I've had positive experiences with, guilds that were mostly military players, or tables that were mostly military players, or whatever, or having at least a few. My current table has several military veterans as well. And I also served in the military, which at the time when gays couldn't be open, and yet we had one sergeant that was, and nobody gave a shit because he was a sergeant. I mean, as long as he wasn't Googling us in the freaking in the shower, we didn't give a crap. You know what I'm saying? It was like when he retired, I'll never forget it. When he retired, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to go celebrate at a bar." He says, "But I don't think you guys want to go there while you're still in service, to celebrate my retirement." And I was like, "All right, we get it. We understand." But it was, so I think you're going to cater to the table that you have, and you're going to have, you're going to take in all your players that you have, regardless of what they are. If you're there to play a game, you're there to play a game. Will you? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that there's any real difference to that, but I'll let you guys jump in on that.
I mean, as long as no one else, like you said, as long as you're not Googling you in the shower, doing anything inappropriate at the gaming table, I have no problem with it. But at the same time, I don't want him using that game as a forum to promote that, I mean, we're there to play a game, dude, and we don't want to hear whatever it is you got to do. If that's what you're here for, you might want to think about leaving, because we're here to play a game. We're here to have fun. And if this is, you're using us as a captive audience kind of thing, sorry, that don't work. You got to go. But as long as you're, cool, you're happy, we welcome you to the table.
Yeah, I kind of looked at this as a bigger question, because it's more of a, on a larger scale, are we allowing everything to happen at the table? And I don't think you should. There is a lot of goodness that comes from defining the experience you want to have, whether it's from a story aspect or, what system are we using or what have you. So I don't see, I tend to see people that try to include everything as less experienced, because that is a much more altruistic sort of, oh yeah, everything can happen. And that's just, first off, that isn't the way the world works, but at the same time, that isn't the way a fun game happens. So ultimately, you have to define what you want. You have to narrow the scope to explore something meaningful, as opposed to just throwing open the floodgates, and then you have something that's so varied and so undefined that it, in my mind, it just isn't enjoyable. So
my Rolex, that was on that more. I don't understand that. Maybe I must have missed the context someplace else. Nope. Nope. I don't know what context that was in. All right. Have no idea, Cal, what you're talking about. Rolexes and missing arms. I missed the connection. Let's see what else we have here. A CCG for vets might not work well for mass market. All right. Combat card game. All right. I don't know. Like combat card games, I guess.
I mean, there's plenty of them out there anyway. I mean, you don't need to make one specifically for vets. I mean, any collectible card game typically has some type of combat in it. So,
yeah, and again, I don't even think that, like I said, I don't want to be like the cliche, talk about like cliches. Oh, vets play Call of Duty. Vets play, Medal of Honor, going way back when, or they're going to play just those first-person shooter kind of games. No, they're certainly going to be as varied as everybody else. So I don't know if catering a game to veterans, I mean, other than America's Army, which was that, the video game I mentioned in the very beginning, that was developed by the U.S. Army as a recruiting tool. That's the only game that I've actually seen that was like, no, this was created for vets. I mean, this was created for a training tool, and this was created for recruitment. But I couldn't even say that like Call of Duty is catering to or created for veterans. It's created for, you know,
Anyone
12
who
to
wants to play
16,
it.
yeah, 12 to 16-year-old boys for the most part. I mean, let's not be,
Right.
blind to, the realities of marketing. But but yeah, it's like I don't think that any card game, would be, catering to or exclusionary of veterans from playing. I mean, is there a veteran out there that's playing My Little Pony online? Probably.
Probably.
It probably is. I mean, if it's fun enough,
If it's fun enough, or he just wants to check it out because he's got a young daughter or something.
Yeah. I was like, I played Club Penguin with my younger daughter for a while. I was like, oh, this game's not that bad, So yeah, not everything has to be combat and blood and gore. But it's anything where there's a learning curve to it, I guess, and anything where there's challenges that you have to do, I think it's going to cater to such a broad audience anyway that I don't think you have to make special games. I think making special games is actually detrimental to our hobby. If you're making a game that's so focused on one of these small little niche, groups, just to say to virtual single, really, that I think is detrimental. So no, I don't think that.
Actually, we could probably slow down in the number of games considering the number of RPGs out there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a new one coming out, almost every other week on drive-through. I mean, I looked at my hard drive and did the math. I got 4.7 million pages of reading material. And that's just, the RPG department.
Mm-hmm.
On a side note, there's a couple more that just came out, and there's one coming out soon that I'm actually helping the guy edit just for fun and grins and giggles.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's plenty of games out there for everyone. We don't need another, like you said, it'll hurt the hobby if you're catering to just one group anyway. It'll be such a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche that no one's probably going to hear about it anyway. So
right.
It's just better just leave it be.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you guys getting any background sound? Because I can always switch my mic.
I'm hearing something like a chirp.
A vacuum cleaner in the background. Right?
Well, I don't hear the vacuum cleaner. I've been hearing something that's kind of like chirping, like an electronic bird or something, but it's not very loud or annoying. So
really, all right.
I don't know if it's you or the other guy.
I don't know. I don't have chirping on my side. Let me see if I can change to my mic.
It's not that big of a deal. I just switch ears. Like I said, we're military. We adapt, no come.
You can hear me, right?
Oh, I hear you fine.
Yeah. I just switched to the mic since I'm wearing the headset anyway. Might as well use them both. All right.
And I'm still hearing that little chirpy sound, so it's obviously.
It might be something. It might be something internet related, or
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm muted, so.
Yeah. Yes. Thirsty Sword, lesbian. There's the other one that's very catered to South American, indigenous people playing. I forget what that's called. Something in Crow or Jaguar and Crow or something, like that. It's like, having those kinds of things are, just so niche that they really are exclusionary. It's like you don't feel, and one of the creators, that was a creator of an RPG for that was African themed, and that moron literally came out and said, "If you're white, I don't want you to buy this." Okay, fine, it's like fine, that's fine, and so. Yeah, you could be so niche and so virtual signaling that you're just gonna, cut your own throat as far as being a publisher, or a game designer. So you can't fix stupid sometimes.
Sometimes you
So
can't.
yeah. So let's see. Nuclear weapons specialist. Just wanted to say hello. Well, hello, Facebook user. Maybe that's Max. I don't know. I have to double check and make sure I haven't cut Max out of my game. But or that could be Heathen Dog too, because I think Heathen Dog might have been USAF, but don't know. Nuclear weapons specialists. I don't know anybody. One of my D&D friends back from when we were kids, he was on. I think he was a nuclear. He was on a sub, so he was the nuclear engineer on the sub. So, but anyway, Worst Cat basic D&D catered to all. It didn't exclude anyone, right? Yeah, it was wide open for everybody. And most games don't. Most games are wide open for everybody. They don't exclude anybody.
Exactly.
I mean, even AD&D First Edition. I mean, Gary Gygax wrote right in the very beginning, this game's for everybody. It was like there was never any exclusion in any of it.
Yeah, I've come to the conclusion RPGs can be are designed for everyone. Just not everyone should be playing RPGs.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, 40 plus or even older sometimes. Oof. It's hard to imagine, but yeah.
Yeah, we can have a whole session on how bad the VA system is. We don't.
Yeah. I am fortunate to have medical coverage that I won't have to. And I was even for my father. I mean, my father never had to rely on the VA, even though he got some of the services of it. But he always had coverage outside of needing that. But yeah, the VA still. You don't hear about it so much anymore, because I think it's off everybody's radar. I'm sure that it still has all of the difficulties. Maybe it's improved in some ways or another, but
in minor ways, it has improved. Trust me, I know. I am deep into the VA system.
Yeah.
I know this is probably going to, most people won't understand what I'm getting ready to say, but I'm at 90%, and trying to get that last 10% is like pulling teeth.
Right.
And if I was to get hurt today, it'd probably take me 3 to 4 months to get an appointment just to get looked at by the generic doctor, and then they'll say, "Oh, well, you need a specialist." Well, that's another 3 or 4 month wait minimum.
Right. Yeah, I like I said, I've never had to deal with them directly. Only when my father passed away, and he was, I don't know if it's different, but he was a combat veteran. So when he passed away, my mother obviously got some, a good portion of his VA benefits, and she actually gets some of his VA benefits, like, like a stipend or something like that, like $90 a month or whatever. But it wasn't a very complex thing to go through, I mean, it just never had to go through VA care, and I think that's where it kind of probably falls apart, is with the care aspect of it. I said it back years ago. I mean, they should have put someone like a Gary Sinise as the head of the VA. I mean, at least he wasn't a military person, but you're not going to find anybody that cares more about veterans, medical and health services and everything than that guy. You know what I'm saying? So
I know.
I was, I was like, geez, somebody just appoint this guy, especially when they were going through, I forget, it was like early on when Trump first came into office. And he made it a point to say, hey, this system's screwed up, and it should be unacceptable to everyone. But no one else was ever doing anything with it. No one else was ever addressing it, at least the way that he did. And I was sitting there the whole time. I was like, put Gary Sinise in charge of the damn thing. At least you'll have somebody that cares tremendously about it.
Yep.
Not some career military person or whatever, because they treat it more like they're a political appointee then. And, but anyway, that's still my hope that someday Gary Sinise will be the head of the VA. I can't think of a better person for it. We are unscripted. So yeah, we are unscripted. There's no there's no script that we're following.
You didn't send me a script.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I do not, even when I'm my regular channel, it's virtually unscripted. Like, I don't write anything down. I don't have a note sheet or anything like that, unless I'm really picking apart something and reviewing something. But for the most part, no, I'm not scripted. So, wish I probably would be a little bit better, if I was scripted, but no. Yeah, I just don't have it into me. So, and Unchained, when I say Unchained, I mean, I'm going to give what my impression is, whether you like it or not. Again, it's, that's that military thing. It's like,
right.
Kick sand if you don't like it. I don't care, Let's see. All right. A little tongue. My girlfriend wants to learn to paint miniatures, though. Okay. I could never. I even bought like this little painting kit, with the little goblin inside and everything. I was like, I haven't touched it. I haven't touched it yet. I was like, nah, I'll never be able to do that. I don't know why I spent the money on it. I guess maybe I'll try. I'll do that figure, and then I'll show everybody how fucked up the thing is. Feel like, all right, this is my first mini. I have like hundreds and hundreds of minis, because I have like the Conan, the Monolith Games Conan. I have the Solomon Kane, and they have awesome freaking figures in those things. Not a single one of them is painted, never will be painted. I'm like, I don't have the money to pay somebody to paint them. And if I painted them, they would look like shit. They're better off the gray that they are right now. But maybe I will paint that goblin, and then you can see how I did that, Cal, and and probably laugh at me.
I don't mind painting. I just can't, unfortunately, because like I said, we all moved in to help my mother. There's no room for me to set up a paint station, and it's a pain in the butt to go through to pull out all your paints to paint those minis, and then you have to put them down, and then you put the paints away, and then you got to make sure you protect the minis for a long enough time for the paint to dry and the wash to dry and whatever dull coat you put on it. But I went from a terrible painter to an okay kind of painter. Somewhere around here, I got that cool owl bear mini that looks pretty legit. But yeah, I would love to get back into painting, but I just need to, be able to set up my paint station. I got like 200 paints just sitting in the box. I hope they're still good when I finally crack the box open.
Yeah. I think military people, veterans, in particular, we are impossible to offend or trigger.
At least the good ones.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, at least the good ones. It's like, now don't confuse getting triggered with getting pissed off. There's a difference there. But you can't offend me. I mean, I was a middle school teacher. I've been called everything. All right. I was like, I've been called absolutely everything, and including the best teacher in the world, so I've had it on both ends, so yeah, I can't be offended. And as far as triggered is concerned, I don't even know what that, to me, that doesn't even mean anything.
Yeah.
I can never hear something like there's no thing that's like, oh, I can't just handle this. I have to leave this room. I can't, your opinion is too triggering for me. To me, that's just bizarre. It's just absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
I want to say maybe it was close to a month ago, as we were leaving church, one man was having a minor disagreement with another man, And I just happened to overhear just a little part of it. And, to me, it was like, okay, whatever. The next week when I saw him, the guy apologized to me for, oh, I'm sorry if I, triggered you or offended you with that little. I was like, dude, that didn't even faze me. No problem. I just walked past you and have a nice day. I mean, but I guess now everybody's so worried about offending and triggering, they got to apologize for every little thing they say.
Yeah. Get her some Blood Bowl. The video game? Blood Bowl was a cool game. Video game.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Do you remember that game, Worst Cat? Blood Bowl?
I don't think I do.
That might have been early. That might have been too early for you.
The only thing that comes to mind is like Battletoads, something like that.
Yeah, Blood Bowl was a video game. There was one for football, and you were playing like orcs against against others, and then when you tackled them, you'd like tear them to pieces and stuff. And then there was like a hockey version of it as well. 80s, definitely 80s. Probably a PlayStation 1 game. Might even been earlier than that. I'd have to check, but Blood Bowl was that was a pretty brutal game. Let's see. No catering to all things doesn't mean being a bit. Not catering to all things doesn't mean being a bit. That's correct. Being a bigot. If you don't define the experience you want to have, you won't have an experience that resembles anything. Okay. Oh, that's your comment. I'm reading. I was like, okay. I mean, it's just because you're not willing to accept everything at your table doesn't make you a gatekeeper. Let's put it that way. It's like, you're going to try to be tolerant, but you don't have to be tolerant with everything. You can say, no, this is just not, I'm not willing to have you at my table. If someone comes to my gaming table and they're there for some other purpose than actually playing the game, and being a decent person and just spending that 3 hours or 4 hours of time, having a good time and just, if you're there for some other reason, then I'm not going to be open for you to remain. It's like I'm not equipped. Like I said this earlier, I'm not equipped to help you deal with your issues. It's like and if you're coming to me for affirmation of your identity, I can't help you. It's like I'll treat you like a human being, but I'm not going to. I will call you by your first name, but I'm not going to bend over backwards to try to warp my language usage, to cater to some kind of a thing that you feel. Just not doing it. It's like I said, I don't like pronouns. Give me your first name. Give me your first name. I would rather call you by your first name, whatever first name you want. You could say, Don. You could say, now my name is Dominique. Fine. I'll call you Dominique for the rest of the session. I'll call you a wacko after you walk away. but it's like, but am I going to, call you a she when I know you're not? Probably not. No. Yeah, so I'll just call you Dominique for the rest, and that'll be your pronoun. So, but anyway, yes, I didn't mean to offend you.
Cal, go cry tonight.
Yeah. Vets either game or they won't. My dad likes Yahtzee. I mean,
veterans are just people.
Yeah. Yeah, not everybody, like I said, my experience was that no one in my unit, or in either of the two units that I was in, but nobody in my unit was a gamer that I know of. Other than, we were playing EA football, and we were playing cards or shouldn't. I was never good at dice. I never could grasp that. I know it's just throwing dice, but never knew the rules. Never knew. I was like, I always felt like I was just. I'm the worst gambler. I just lose. So it was like I never understood doubling down or doing any of that kind of thing. I was like, nah, I just take my money and then I just stopped. I was like, nah, I'm done with this. The majority of players at our gaming tables are veterans. Yeah, and
I'm sure he has some very interesting games as a result.
yes, yeah, it's like and like I said earlier, we take a lighter side to it. We're serious about the game mechanics. We're serious about like doing the game right, if you want to call it that. But we don't mind breaking from what you're doing. Like I know some people in gaming will be like, oh, you don't want to break immersion, right? Oh, you got to be in the moment. You're in your character. You're role playing and you're functioning like this. Military people don't think that way, because when you're doing a shitty job, which you often have to do, any kind of a break from what you were doing was a release from it. And like I said, you usually took a darker side look at it, and you didn't care about the the shenanigans or the like I said, the fuckery of it. And then you get back to playing the game. And if that breaks your immersion, it's like, well, you shouldn't be playing with veterans, because that's how we function. I think it's like we could easily break from this and then come back to it again and just pick up where we left off, and not that's change 99, right? And that's, we're so used to just having to shift gears and and then come back to it and be like, wow, we just wasted 45 minutes doing absolutely nothing. It was like we accomplished nothing during that time, and everybody knows that we were going to accomplish nothing, but it just that you had to look busy for that second, and then you came back to it again. It was always like, it was always just the ability to shift gears for the sake of shifting gears, and then you just went right back into what you were doing previously, like nothing else happened. And that's the benefit, I think, of playing with a majority of players at your table that are veterans, is that we don't take it. We take aspects of it seriously, and then other aspects of it we don't, and we kind of blend that together.
Yeah, like the Marine Corps, we just adapt, overcome, and improvise.
Yeah. I got to see what Blood Bowl is. I'm wondering if you're talking about is that a card game?
I think he's talking about the Warhammer game. I think it's like
the video game, right?
No, it's a board game, I think.
Oh, it's a board game.
Yeah, it was an
old
board
game. Football game.
Yeah,
there was a video football game. Yes, that was a video game originally.
Okay, well, I know back a long time ago, I forget, maybe 80s or 90s or whatever, is when the original Blood Bowl came out, and I don't know if a newer version's coming out. I mean, there's so much news in the RPG world and gaming world now, I can't keep up with it all, but I've heard a lot about Blood Bowl recently, so. But yeah, if the women around you love to play Blood Bowl, let them play.
Yeah.
Some women do.
Yeah. Let's see. Vet CB's here. How's it going? And welcome back, Dented Helmet. Shout out to the Castles and Crusades folks who offer us vets 50% off all veterans all the time, 365. Yes, absolutely. If you just send them an email and let them know that you're a vet, you will get whatever you're ordering that time around. You will get 50% off. I haven't used that with them yet, even though I was aware of it. I was, just such a big fan of their stuff that I was like, oh, I want you to get the full amount. But when they come out with the full bundle of all of their codexes for the the various things like the Celtic and Roman, and I think they're working on Chinese now. I'm waiting for them to come out with a codex of Japanese, so you get the ninjas and the samurai and all that stuff. Oh, I know, don't be offended, Wizards of the Coast, and but when I come out with that, then I'm going to buy them all, and that's when I'll use that 50% off, because that's like a $200 bill, so I'll be like, no, I want them all, but I will use that 50% at that time to get them all. But yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for them. They just came out. Castles and Crusades, or I should say, Troll Lord Games just came out with a generic adventure game that, if it's, I think it uses the same system as Castles and Crusades. So I'm really looking forward to backing that. But they're a great company, very, very friendly. Both Chenault brothers, Stephen and Davis, are both U.S. Army veterans and great guys. So absolutely, I haven't had a chance to interview Davis yet, but I interviewed Stephen, and he was an awesome person to have on the channel. So we see so many choices. It's a time of plenty. Yes. And like Don said earlier, there's probably a little too many choices. Like, I avoided OSE because I was like, how many retro clones of basic D&D do I actually need? And at that point I was like, I can't justify spending $120 or whatever the Kickstarter was at the time to get yet another one.
Yeah,
So I
that's
spent
how I
like
feel.
I spent like $80 or $90 on Swords and Wizardry, the complete box set of that. And I was like, all right, I got that, but now I'm done with all of those.
Yeah, anytime I look at a game and I see strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma, armor class, hit points, I'm like, oh, you're a D&D retro clone of some type. I mean, unless you better put, like, in your first sentence or two, you better tell me what's different about your game as opposed to a retro clone in normal. Otherwise, I'm not even going to look at it, because all I'm going to see is you just copy and pasted a D&D book, changed a few things, because, okay, like, there's a game out there that's a retro clone. It's just exactly word for word D&D. The only difference is they changed descending armor class to ascending armor class. And then there's another variation where they just took all the saving throws and compressed them into one number. And then it's like, okay, yeah, except for those few minor changes. No, that's why for the longest time, I can't even think of the name of the games now, but Scarlet Heroes, and there's another one that I didn't bother looking at because they had strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, charisma, armor.
Yeah.
Now, had they told me enough of the changes that was in there, I probably would have bought those games sooner.
Right.
But like I said, as soon as I see those, I was like, you're a D&D clone. And I got all the 3rd edition books. I'll just go play 3rd edition. Plus, I have the, that hardback book that's got all the basic stuff in there, the expert, the companion, and the masters for
you're talking
D&D.
about the encyclopedia.
Yeah,
the
the rules
encyclopedia. I picked up. That I picked up because I was like, that's kind of nice to have.
One book for everything.
Yeah, one book for everything.
But
the only thing it doesn't have is Immortals. I don't believe it includes Immortals.
No, it doesn't include Immortals.
But even Frank Metzler said that wasn't D&D. He said, so you should include it anyway. I think that's his one regret was making that set. So exclusive reverse. I may talk about the guy about the African game you mentioned. Yeah, that was. I'm just catching up on the comments. Yeah, that was that African game that Sword Dreams, or something like that. Sword Dreams Group or something. And the guy never fulfilled the Kickstarter or something like that. So it turned out to be like a scam or something.
Oh, he's just saying he couldn't tag you with the @ symbol. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. But okay.
Well, different phones, different technology levels.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I read these, you have to take into account you're probably dealing with someone who may not have English as the first language, or if they're typing on their phone, autocorrect changes the word and they don't realize it. So you read it and you go, what are they trying to tell me again?
Yeah, no, this thing is like a Gemma or something. Gemma is who runs StreamYards or whatever. Now I just linked up where that actually comes from. I was always wondering, well, like, what the hell is this Gemma thing that always comes in my emails? And I just now connected it to this. I thought it was a different thing. But anyway, let's see. You can learn to paint easy first. Yeah, it's not about learning to paint. It's just having the unshaky hands to do the painting. My eyesight sucks, and it's I'm not 23 anymore, so it doesn't. I don't have all of those.
Well, that explains
Yeah,
why I keep hearing about
I
Blood
got.
Bowl. They came out with a
Yeah, I guess so. I
new
gotta
team
check it
theme.
out now. You see, now I'm gonna get suckered into checking out something. Um, no catering to fields that are worthless. That's correct. I started RPGing in the service while stationed at Fort Hood. Hey, TR, good to see you. And thank you for your service. Friend of mine, ex-army, saw gaming. I was. Yeah, here's an interesting thing. And this is not a trigger. It's X. All right. No one's an ex-Marine. You ever hear that? Oh, he's an ex-Marine. I was like, you don't want to call a Marine an ex-Marine. I mean, unless they were dishonorably discharged, there's no such thing as an ex anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if you got sectioned out during training, then you're an ex. Actually, I wouldn't even give you, you're not an ex-soldier. You didn't make it. You know what I'm saying? You got sectioned out, so you're in a, so there's no such thing as ex. I know you don't mean any, thing from it, but yeah, it's just veteran,
Former
yeah,
or former
former veteran or whatever. But
whatever.
like I said, it's not a trigger. I'm just, no one that is a veteran ever uses X. So that's that's one thing.
Well, he was talking about she never gamed or he never gamed, but collected and painted miniatures. Well, this hobby does have a tendency to have a very large umbrella and cover a lot of different things.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, paint the miniatures, or you go out and buy them. Paint the terrain and create, or now we got 3D printing. You got everything from
there's
store bought to homemade to do just about everything in this hobby, and there's it covers so much. People confuse board games with role-playing games, with card games, with painting miniatures and 3D printing terrain, and it's like, yeah, they're all somewhat connected, but they're all also different hobbies in and of themselves.
There is a whole slew of people on Twitter who do nothing but create characters and draw them, put them, or cosplay or do whatever, and they don't play the game. So there are these on the peripheral of the hobby, any hobby, basically. They're usually called groupies. In other industries, you call them groupies. They're people that are kind of adjacent to, but and that's how they engage in it, and they don't actually, really play, and that's why you get a lot of the negativity around the hobby as well, which is unfortunate because it's like, no, you're not even part of this. About a month ago or so, we were going through that thing with the one individual who kept on attacking the OSR and, this and that, and don't go to this con and don't support this vendor and everything. And it's like, you looked at his channel, which he's now had to take down, and it's like, he never had anything about the OSR. It's like you're adjacent to the hobby somehow, and you're coming from the outside. What the guy with the orcs are racist thing, he was like, oh, I don't even play D&D. I never even liked the game. I play other games that don't even have orcs in it, but he made this big brouhaha about it. The people that came out against Oriental Adventures and went a freaking any over their reporting on Oriental Adventures, never read the first freaking page of the book to see what it was about. They never read the book, and so they just went off on this tirade about something that they had no clue about, and so it's, I think the people on the peripheral of the hobby are some of the worst people to be involved in the hobby in any way. But if you are on the peripheral and you're just doing something as innocuous as, well, I'm just going to paint figures because I really like them and I enjoy painting it, that's perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine.
You know, yeah. You know, if you want to do cosplay and that's all you're doing, you're dressing up like characters you see in, you know, in the books or whatever, that's perfectly fine. You know, as long as you're not trying to change the way that we play our games, then, you know,
do whatever you want to do.
You do whatever you want to do. It's a free country.
Yeah, that's you're referring to the book not having immortal stuff in it.
Yeah. All right. So maybe it does. It certainly doesn't have the whole system. I think it probably goes to what was that, like level 36 or something like that Immortals brought them up to. But I'm sure it doesn't have, because it's not really D&D, the other aspects of it. You need a magnifier like me, also used to shake but gain control. I said, yeah, I saw this thing, Cal, where it's like like a magnifying glass, and then another smaller one, then another smaller one. You know, it was like 3 of them that you put on like a goggle type of thing. And I was like, that's all I have to do. My wife already thinks I'm a freak, you know, playing my games. All she'd have to do is see that, and it'd be like, done, you're done, you know. But I think it'll be a lot more fun if I try to paint that thing, you know, just freehand it and then show everything off, you know, show everybody off. Hey, this is my first mini I've painted since I was probably 12 years old. And then you'll see. I'll probably have more fun with it that way too.
Besides, there's tons of videos on YouTube to teach how to paint. That's how I learned. Hey, she slammed the okay.
Yeah, no, that's that other person. Yeah. Yeah, that was the channel that I was talking about. Yeah, he overstepped and got threatened with a lawsuit, and so he shut everything down. Or his wife shut everything down. Let's put it that way. But anyway, they are used to the set Arabian watch motions. Sometimes these things go way off. Like we're paying more attention to talking and not always. There's headsets much better.
Oh, he's referring. There's headsets you can get with the magnifying glasses.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I got it.
You won't look as too scary.
Yeah, you won't look as too scary. Yeah. So there's headsets much better than those both eyes. Yeah. All right. So the thing about the people who attack RPG for what they think is problematic, they are the same kind of people who are forcing their political cultural agenda into everything. Just ignore them. Yes, it's nice. Or you can get a real RPG and take care of them that way. So
they don't have those on eBay. Last time I checked.
No. Although there are probably some states where they're not even banned, right? There's some state where you can get anything, you know. So you probably like Arizona, you can buy anything you want. And there's a couple places in Florida, I think, where you can rent and shoot everything, you know. But probably not rocket propelled grenades. You're right. Yeah, me and grenades. Although I did great on the grenade course, you know, in basic training. It's like I was a sharpshooter with grenades, but they had to put the S on my helmet, right? It was like, because I throw sidearm, you know, so they needed to know that I throw sidearm when you have the sergeant next to you. Otherwise, I bounce it off the top of his helmet, you know, especially when you're throwing live. You know, it was like so like, oh no, you're a sidearm. We got to put that big ass S on your helmet. That was my nickname, by the way. Was based on my helmet because I was given an oversized helmet in basic training, and then they refused to give me the right size. So I just had this helmet that used to flop all over the place, and I was big head for the entire time through training. And then many of my guys from basic training, we went right into advanced training as well. So that kind of carried through, and I was big head straight through. Probably my first 2 years in the military. That was my nickname, was Big Head. So Yeah. Okay. So let's see. All right. So let's go back to a banner here and let's see what I wanted to bring up. Um, so by the way, kind of on a side note, today is the 11th anniversary of Skyrim. So Skyrim was born on this day on 11/11/11. And that's another great game that I think, military people and other people, in general, should, probably really enjoy that game. Skyrim is an awesome, awesome like starting off game. It's a good solo game, right? You can do a lot, and well, there's no multiplayer in it except unless you're playing the online, the MMO. The Elder Scrolls MMO is not all that great. I mean, I know a lot of people play it, and it should be, but it has all of the flaws that MMOs kind of have. It's like there's just a lot of grinding and a lot of very repetitive stuff. Skyrim gives you all the freedom that you could want, and you know you can basically make yourself an enemy of the state in that place, and everybody attacks you. Every time you walk into a town or whatever, you can make it as filled with craziness as you like. Or you could play it straight through and play it like the way it was designed to be, or whatever. You can really, that
Do
is the
whatever you
kind of
want.
yeah, you can do what you want. I mean, it's a perfect sandbox with with just a very, very basic framework, up and around it. And for somebody that's into solo RPGs, that's probably one of the best, RPGs on the computer, for that kind of thing. And
Well, its predecessor, Morrowind,
yeah,
until my computer died, I think I was 63rd level, and I did nothing but pearl diving.
yeah, that's
Because you go out to the river, you dive down, you collect the pearls,
yeah,
and like every 3 game days it would reset. And the monster
yeah,
got in my way, so I had to beat him up. And that's literally all I was doing, was going out,
yeah.
finding the next place to pearl dive, collect the pearls, bring them back to the city, and just beat whatever monsters got in my way. And then there's a cool cave. Let me just go explore this cave for a little while. Okay, I'm done. I have no idea what the main plot was. I don't even think I touched the main plot. I was like, yep, they said it's a sandbox and I could do whatever I want. So I sat there and did whatever I wanted.
That's exactly how I played that. I was a skoma hoarder. So all I did was I killed somebody in one of the first towns you were in, killed them to take over their house, and then all I did was find every bit of skoma I could find anywhere, and just that's all I did with that game. I don't think I don't even think I leveled all that much in that game, but I certainly had, thousands and thousands of units of skoma in the house that I stole. So yeah, and that's the kind of freedom in those solo RPGs that you could really do. You don't have to play the regular game. You can just do your own thing, and just mess around with it. And just a lot of fun, certainly going to pass the time with that kind of a thing. And like I said, I think a lot of the solo RPGs really come out of the fact that not everybody has this, a social network where they can, put together a gaming table, but they still want a game. And so that's a potential use, of, for your gaming. Let's see. Breaking Bad, Skyrim. Yes. Skoma, the drug of choice of Khajiit. Yes, and I was a Khajiit thief, so I can go and steal it everywhere I went. The most recent time I played Skyrim, I was actually videoing and doing the thing, and I got through the first part and started trying to make my way to the town where you join the Thieves Guild, and I went up this tower and I got killed in like 3 seconds. I was like, holy crap. I mean, it's like, and then I was like, oh, I'm not going to I was playing it straight, right? So I was like, no, when this character's dead, he's dead. and then I'm going to remake a new character, and actually I'll probably end up doing that today, to honor, the day, and just play Skyrim today. So that, yeah, that's a good big freedom for the game. Anniversary DLC is huge. Oh, I didn't know they had a DLC for it. Is it free? Is it free? That's what I want to know. I'll double check it. I'll see if
Well, we
Skyrim.
know where you're going after this live stream.
Yes. I will definitely. I'll go have some lunch, and then I will be hopping in there. I'll go to Steam and check to see what their free thing is. So let's see. Well, we're coming up. We have time. So
We're at an hour and 45.
Yeah. So I was looking to. So I was going to talk about a few charities that I certainly wanted to give a single boost, and some of them are really well known, and other ones I think are important. So these are three that I've actually backed. All right. So Wounded Warrior Project, I think virtually everybody has heard, of. So that's one that's out there. 22 Kill is specifically for both suicide awareness and prevention among service members. And where it comes from is that 22 service members kill themselves every day. And so that's that's a really important thing. And I've had I've had Facebook friends, who have taken their own lives in like the last 2 years, and one very public on Facebook, reached out with a video and says, hey, this is it and everything. And I, tried to get to him and tried to, and within minutes of that, he had taken his own life. So it's a, really, really important thing for us to have awareness of. And when this thing uploads, I will put links to that and probably many, many other charities related to, Wounded Warriors, first responders. Gary Sinise Foundation is another one that I've contributed to in the past, and I think that he is probably one of the most vocal and best ambassadors for, whether it be Veterans Administration or things like that, just in general, for someone to come out of Hollywood and he's pretty much separated from Hollywood for the most part. And this has become his calling. And so it's another project that I, really have supported in the past and recommend, but I'll put a whole bunch of others as well, because there are many, many others, but these are the three main ones that I know of. If anybody else has any others, I will certainly put those up there as well. Veterans Day is another opportunity for us to remember, that, we have brothers and sisters out there that are struggling. And, it's not enough to just say Happy Veterans Day or something. Yeah, I think everybody needs to do, just a little bit more in order to, especially help those that are struggling.
Well, when I was stationed there, I saw the barracks and visited where the Wounded Warriors go. I see what they went through. And I didn't meet him, but Gary Sinise did come to Jacksonville. He was like the master of ceremonies for the Veterans Day parade that took place there a few years back. And I think he's always fighting to come back because, Camp Lejeune is like one of the main base on the East Coast for the Marines. So he always fights. I guarantee you, at least once every 2 years, he's somewhere in that area doing something for just the Marines themselves. I don't even know what he's doing with the Army, Navy, and Air Force the rest of the year. But I know usually once every 2 years, he's in the area doing something.
Yes, I know, El. Wounded Warriors is what Max's channel. So Max's channel is Legion of Myth. They've been doing a 24-hour marathon of gaming and such, and they're raising money for Wounded Warrior. And then, like I said, I've backed. I currently, that's where all my donations go to for all of my Amazon purchases go to 22 Kill, and any of those. That's the easiest way that you can actually back some of these. Is that if you do have an Amazon account or you frequently use Amazon and everything, you don't have to do a direct donation. You could do one that's kind of, on the side, that just automatically happens when you're doing your regular purchases, and I've had some years where it's like, well, geez, I've they've donated through my purchases, hundreds of dollars, in the course of, 6 months, a year of purchases, especially around Christmas time when we, spend a shit ton, and so that's another way that you can actually, do it, where a big corporation is really contributing a portion of what you're spending already as well. So so that's kind of a really, I want to say, I don't want to say painless, but it's a way that you can just do it as a regular course of doing your regular business throughout the year. So but I'm definitely going to hit a couple of these up for direct as well today. So let's see. Dented Helmet, God bless all our veterans, especially those who are struggling right now, mentally, physically, and monetarily, and bless them. Yes, absolutely. And so we're gonna pretty much wrap this up here. So, gentlemen, thanks for coming on, and thank you for your service. And it's it's always great, to do these things. And like I said, we don't do them enough, and we shouldn't just center it just on today. I know that, it's an obvious thing to do it on Veterans Day, but but these are things that we should be mindful of, all year round. But I know that becomes something that's hard to do because you're, everyone's so busy and doing other things. But it would be nice if we can always remember to just keep on doing these things, throughout the entire year. I'll let you each finish up, and then we'll wrap.
All right, I'll let you go first, bud.
All right, that works for me, man.
Yeah.
No, I just I think I really like what you said about being able to serve in the cloth of our nation. It really is an honor and a privilege. It's, and especially for somebody that goes a full term or whatever, it really is a once in a lifetime experience for people. So I appreciate you doing a stream. I this is the first time I've hopped in, but I've tried to comment when I see. But as far as the charities and stuff like that, one of the big things I think people can do, if you're not able to throw money at a problem, is be civilly involved. Organizations like the Veterans Administration, they do a lot of good, and there is a lot of need around America for that kind of support. But they also need public accountability as well, especially more recently. So you can be civilly involved when you see issues coming up that involve VA. If it doesn't meet your sniff test of what your moral compass is, like, you should speak up, make your voice public about that kind of stuff, and really that helps a lot more than a donation to a what a lot of people would see is, well, once I give that money away, I don't know where it goes and stuff like that. But being actively involved in, especially if that's where your heart takes you, to support veterans and stuff like that, being actively involved in whether it's a local group or kind of on the national scene with the VA, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
and finally, Don, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to look at him and say ditto.
Yeah.
Everything he just said. And I'm going to thank you for your service. Thank you for doing this and, making this, more accessible, more, out there. so people can see that, gaming and veterans do go together, and sometimes gaming helps the veterans in ways you don't think of. Like I mentioned
Right.
before, the two guys. So yeah, it's good that you did this, and thank you for having me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Yes, gentlemen. Thank you very much. And hey, hop from here over to Legion of Myth. They're still probably running their 24-hour live stream over there, and check out to see what they're doing. And then if you have some time, squeeze a little Skyrim in there as well. So yeah, get a little RPG going as well. So guys, thanks a lot for coming on in. And good seeing you on the stream. Where's Cat? So great first time, great first showing. And yeah, you certainly came in with a lot of confidence and energy. So that's always great. And Don, good to see you again as well. We have to do another stream talking about solo RPGs. Maybe once I tear through that book, that Modifius Geek Gamers book, and sort through that and see how applicable that is to other things. I was thinking that was going to be more Modifius focused, but I guess it's not. I think it's more generic. But I'll be working on that as well. So I'll be in touch. All right, guys.
No
thanks a lot, everybody in the chat. Thanks for coming on in. And like I said, I'm going to put the links up for all of those different charities in the comment section once this thing goes not live, but once it gets uploaded, which usually takes a couple hours for that to be done, then I'll be able to put that in there. So again, thanks everyone for coming in, and have a great afternoon.